Well, boys, and girls. Look, now before we go further, I have a face that works better on radio. With that and I'm having a bad hair day, but I did come it for this video. So, today is a truck video, but I'm not going to tell you which truck just yet, because there's a story here. So if you don't want to hear a story, best you go now. This happened many years ago. I think I was 10. And we were on holiday in the Western Cape, in Ceres actually. And I was a truck fanatic. I grew up with trucks. So also, I need to tell you this here. My frame of reference was Mercs and the odd MAN and the Magirus Deutz. And, we were working I grew up in a crusher. So that was what I was used to. Little 190 to 210 horsepower, non-turbo, straight 6, 11-liter engines that couldn't pull itself. That we actually loaded 24 and 25 tons on and grossed like 38 tons. So, yes, that was my frame of reference. That's what trucks were for me. Right. So now we're on holiday, and the place we stayed was very close to the main road going through Ceres, not even a block away. And the one morning, by 6, 7, 8 o'clock, I remember I was having a coffee and dipping my biscuit into it like this. And there was this noise in the road up there somewhere that immediately caught my attention. You could hear that it was a diesel, but I've never heard anything like that. I just plonked everything down and I ran. And when I got to the road, there was this truck that came past, went over the robot, and then turned into a parking space there by a cafe. So I ran. And I got there, and there was this long-nosed bonneted truck that I've never seen in my life. At the funniest spoke wheels, with like 5 or 6 bolts, I can't even remember. And this old man, all leathery and real Kaapenaar, got out. And he left the door open. So he went and I ran around, and I'm looking into this thing, and everything I saw was alien. There were 2 gear levers. This truck was standing there idling, naga. I've never heard anything like that in my life. And I remember he came out, and I was still peeping into it. He said, "More boot." It's like, what am I doing there? More oom, and I'm like, oh, I like your truck. And next moment, my mother was there. Because 10 years old, I just plonked everything down and ran. So they actually came with a car, found me there, and all hell broke loose. So we had a little domestic there at first, and the old man actually calmed us down. He said to me, listen, he said to my mother was a beautiful woman. He said to her, "Mevrou," he said, I can actually take your son tomorrow. If he can be at the road at 5 o'clock, I can take him with me. It's 25 k's out of town to a siding or something where he offloads the onions that goes on the train, or I can't even remember what the hell it was. But he can go with me, and we'll be back by about 11. So my mother fell for it, and yes, so obviously I was there the next morning at 5 o'clock, and this truck stops, and I get in with a whim, and off we went. And my goodness, this truck sounded like it was doing 4,000 RPM. And I asked him, I said, what engine is in this thing? And he says to me, "Boete, that's a screaming Jimmy." So I go, oh. He says, it's a Detroit diesel. It was an 8V71T. It was a turbocharged one. And he said to me, it produced about, now look, an 8V7 was not a big engine. It's about 9.5 liters or something like that. but it produced about 350 horsepower, which back in those years was a crap load of power. I mean, I've never heard anything like that. 350 horsepower. And the way this thing moved, I remember the nose picking up like this. Every gear just picks up like this. And then he leaves the steering wheel, grabs these two sticks, changes the gear, and it's up and down and back up again. I could make no sense of it. But off we went. And I remember distinctly there was a slight little pull, and I asked him, I said to him, Oom, what did you lie? And he said to me, 30 tons of onions on a triaxle. And this thing was moving, eh? This thing was accelerating out of town like, crazy. And I remember this uphill coming, I thought, oh, with 30 tons, we're going to stand still here. Nothing. He went one gear down and he was over. This truck pulled tremendously. However, why this truck is important and why I'm making this video and telling you this story is that specific truck made me make a decision many, many years later when I was in the market for a truck, which I will tell you in the next video because I'm going to do that truck next. I made a decision based on my experience that specific day because, you know, you get different rides. You get harsh, squeaky, rattly rides, which is normally the domain of riveted together aluminium cabs. And then you get a harsh ride. It was hard. It wasn't a smooth ride like the Mercs, but it was firm. It was just firm. There was no rattle in that truck. That was one thing. I remember the roof being low. I remember me and this sitting shoulder to shoulder in this truck. And it was, you can say, cozy. It was a day cab. Very cozy. Roof was low, little windows that's rounded. I don't know if you know where I am aiming at with what truck. But anyway, but it was a solid cab. That was the one thing about it that I remember. Hell, it was solid. And I remember it had this wood grain on the dash and it had these chrome bezels around the gauges, stuff that I've never seen. Anyway, so let me show you the truck. I'm going to keep you in that thing and then we take it from there. Now, the reason I actually bought this specific truck is that the colors, weirdly enough, was very, very close to what this Oom had on his truck. He bought it from the railways, second hand, but very good nick. And then he just painted the roof and he painted a line, a cream line over the red, the SAR red on the side, which was very close to this specific, black chassis, very specific to, very close to this truck here. All right, so let me show you this. Before we go further, well, let me show you the model and then we'll take it from there. Okay, so here we go. Right. And there we have it. Okay, let me bring you closer. The Diamond Rio. Now, I don't know the history behind this. I never looked it up. But I do know for a fact, let me just take this away, that there was a correlation between Diamond Rio, Diamond T, White, and all those oaks. And anyway, so this truck is to me very dear. I love this truck. I love the look of it, everything. Years later, when I had my own trucks already, there was one that I found, I got in Cape Town, that had a 335 small cam Cummins in it. Now, this specific one, built by Sven Weiler, Jorg's brother, it's got a big cam in it. It looks like a big cam 2 or maybe a big cam 3, 350, probably because it's got an intercooler in it. Yes, so, like I said to you before, the thing with Jorg, with Sven is, he's very keen on engine detail. All right, so there's the motor. I'm going to leave this open. And as you can see, that's the Cummins big cam engine. There was even a lot of, let me just take you out here. I hope you won't go away. Let's just take you out here so I can show you closer. You know, there's a lot of little details on this thing. You know, the pipes, wires, look at the filters there. You know, the diesel filter was on the others. No, the diesel filter was actually this side, yeah. And diesel filters and all that, very nicely done. Very, very good weathering on it. Now, the one thing I can't remember was this air cleaner. I don't think he had that on. I think he had the normal tube style can type air cleaner on there. I did not see that. There's the turbo this side. Very, very nicely done. Yeah. When I saw that it had a Cummins in, because I think this was an aftermarket kit that they tried on it. Now, the cab, Western Star, years later, they used this cab right up to 1995. Yeah, they made the cab, the roof higher, but it was still the same shape over here. I remember I spent most of my young life in this cab. It was, I did 5 million kilometers in a cab like this. Look, it's got the aircon on the roof, and it's also got, that's the wheel I was talking about. I don't know what you guys call it in America. It's got a Hendrickson suspension I see there. It's probably Rockwell, Rockwell diffs. Probably a Fuller 9 or whatever. This is only a single stick gearbox. So yeah, probably a 9-speed or so, or a 13 maybe. But yeah, there's the truck. And you can see the straight through pipe, which is one of the most important things on any Cummins, is keep its throat absolutely open so that you can hear when she's happy. So dudes, that's basically that. I just thought I'd show you this truck. I remember the grill on this, and I remember this very distinctly. When you sat in the cab and you look over this long bonnet, and let's just go out a bit. You look over this long bonnet. It was just something that I was never used to. And I remember this beading here as well. It had that. Which I couldn't remember on the SAR one, but probably had it too. Now look, the railways here by us had a lot of Diamond T's as well, which had the same cab, very similar nose, very, very similar truck. But that had the normal rim like we know them. Right, so sliding fifth wheel there, which was something we never had. Ours was all locked up, and was a lock just made them. There's the cab suspension. Very, very nice looking truck. Now, I've got a flat deck that I'm going to put behind this, because he pulled a flat deck with that thing. Okay, it's a 2-axle, this one. He had a tri-axle, but it was also yellow, funnily enough. Also an extra railway thing that he just took the sides off. And yeah, so I can make this truck. Look at the size of that steering wheel. I can make this truck. Well, let me put it to you this way. It fits in exactly with what I want to do with my layout. That being that, you know, it's such a large layout, 300 square meters. I've got plenty space there to populate. And what's going to be better than doing it with trucks from my childhood? Every one of these brings back memories. You know, you get a certain feeling about a truck. And yeah, it all comes back. And it's nostalgic. Very, very nostalgic for me. Look at the 2 marker lights there as well, you know, standing at an angle. I remember that too, very distinctly. So, dudes, there's it. A Diamond Rio with a Cummins under its bonnet. Straight pipes, lovely weathering, not overly done. It's just perfect, isn't it? It's just perfect. Tube tires. This is so era specific, so era correct that man, this is going to make a nice diorama. Right, dudes. So that's the end of that. We will speak later. Have a lovely weekend. Okay, you dudes. Goodbye.